If someone told her that a simple act of kindness would change her entire life, she would have laughed. But that morning, when loud knocks shook the fragile wooden door of her tiny apartment, and two men in suits stood outside holding legal documents, her heart nearly stopped. She had no idea that the man she'd been helping every morning for months wasn't just a stranger with a broken car, he was one of the richest men in the city. And what he wanted from her now would leave her speechless. Sparkles, before we begin, if you believe kindness still matters in this world, hit the like button, subscribe, and stay till the end, because this story will remind you why good hearts always win. Sparkles. Amara was 24, living in a small apartment at the edge of the city. The walls were cracked, the lights flickered, and the kitchen barely worked, but she always started her mornings with a smile. Every dawn, before heading to her job at a tiny cafe, she would walk down the hill to fetch water for her elderly neighbor and stop by the roadside to feed the stray dogs that wagged their tails the moment they saw her. She didn't have much, a worn-out backpack, a few second-hand clothes, and dreams that often felt too big for her world, but she had one thing that made her different: compassion. And that compassion would soon lead her into the life of a man who had everything, except peace. It was a foggy morning when she first saw him, standing by his sleek black car, the hood open, smoke rising. He looked completely out of place on that rough street, tall, neatly dressed in a suit that probably cost more than her entire rent, his watch glinting faintly in the pale light. But his face wasn't proud, it was tired, almost broken. Amara hesitated but walked over. "Need help?" she asked gently. The man looked up, surprised. "It's fine," he said, clearly frustrated. "I called for assistance, but they're taking forever." She smiled faintly. "They always do. Want some coffee while you wait?" She offered him the paper cup she carried for herself. He blinked, startled by her kindness, then nodded slowly. "Thank you." That morning, they shared a brief, quiet conversation. She learned his name, Adrian Hale, though she didn't recognize it then. He was polite, distant, and clearly not used to being helped by strangers. The next morning, when she passed by the same street, she saw him again. The car was fine this time, but he stood by it, sipping coffee. "I brought an extra," he said with a small smile, offering her a cup. From that day forward, it became a silent ritual. Every morning, as the city woke, they met by that street corner, a poor girl and a wealthy man, sharing coffee, small talk, and an odd sense of peace neither could explain. Amara never asked him about his life, though sometimes she caught glimpses of pain in his eyes. Once, she saw a newspaper headline about a corporate scandal involving Hale Industries, a multi-billion-dollar company. The man in the photo was Adrian, her coffee companion. Still, she never treated him differently. She didn't ask for favors or money. She just listened when he wanted to talk and smiled when he didn't. He started opening up slowly, telling her about the company his father built, the loneliness of success, and how after losing his wife 3 years ago, the world lost its color. "You remind me that people still care," he said one morning quietly, as dawn painted gold across the skyline. "And you remind me," she replied softly, "that even rich people can be lonely." One week, Adrian didn't show up. 2 days passed, then 3. Amara felt a strange emptiness on her morning walks. She had grown used to their quiet moments. On the 4th day, she finally saw him again, but this time, he looked different. Pale. Exhausted. He told her the truth. His company was on the brink of collapse. His board wanted him out. Lawyers were fighting over ownership, and people he thought were friends had turned their backs. She listened silently, then handed him a paper bag. Inside was a small sandwich she had made from what little she had. "You'll be okay," she said, smiling softly. "Even if the world forgets you, don't forget yourself." That simple gesture broke something inside him. For the first time in years, someone cared without expecting anything. The next morning, he didn't come. And the one after that. Weeks passed. Amara assumed she'd never see him again. Life returned to its usual rhythm, early mornings, long shifts, late nights. Yet she always looked at that corner, hoping. Then one morning, everything changed. It was a cold Tuesday when she heard the knock. Sharp, loud, urgent. When she opened the door, two men in suits stood there. Behind them was a sleek black car she recognized immediately. "Miss Amara Khan?" one of the men asked formally. "Yes," she said nervously. "We represent Mr. Adrian Hale," the other said, handing her an envelope. "He requests your presence at his office." Immediately. Her hands trembled. "His office?" They nodded. He insisted it's important. Her mind raced. What had she done? Was he angry? Had she crossed some invisible line? But something in her heart whispered, "Go." The office was massive, marble floors, glass walls overlooking the skyline. She felt completely out of place in her worn-out shoes and faded cardigan. Then the door opened, and Adrian walked in. But this time, he wasn't tired or broken, he looked alive. Confident. "Amara," he said with a smile that reached his eyes. "I'm sorry for scaring you. I had to handle some things before calling you here." She nodded silently, clutching her bag. He walked closer. "I lost almost everything, Amara. But in losing it, I found what mattered most: kindness, simplicity, and hope. You gave me that. Every morning, your small acts reminded me why I started in the first place." She blinked, unsure what to say. He handed her a document. "This," he said softly, "is the deed to a cafe, your cafe. You always dreamed of having one, didn't you?" She gasped, covering her mouth. "Adrian, I can't." "Yes, you can," he said firmly. "Consider it an investment, not in business, but in kindness. The world needs more of it. And I need you to never stop being who you are." Tears filled her eyes as she shook her head. "Why me?" He smiled gently. "Because when I was surrounded by people who saw my money, you were the only one who saw me." Months later, Amara stood behind the counter of her own cafe, Morning Grace. The air smelled of fresh bread and hope. On the wall hung a small plaque. "For the girl who taught a billionaire that the richest hearts aren't the ones with gold, but the ones that give." Adrian visited often, not as a millionaire or an investor, but as a friend. They shared coffee again, just like before, but now the cups were filled with stories, laughter, and dreams realized. The cafe became famous for its warmth. Strangers found friendship there, people helped one another, and Amara's kindness became a quiet legend across the city. One evening, a reporter asked her, "Why do you do it? You could live comfortably now." Amara smiled and said, "Because once, someone taught me that even the smallest act, a cup of coffee, a kind word, can change someone's life. You never know who you're helping until the knock comes at your door." She looked outside, where Adrian was sitting by the window, smiling back at her, the once broken man now at peace. And with that, the camera could fade to the soft glow of dawn, the same light under which it all began, reminding everyone watching that kindness is never wasted. Sparkles, if this story touched your heart, hit the like button, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe for more stories that prove, love and compassion are still the richest things we can give. Sparkles. True wealth isn't measured by what we have, but by how much we give. A kind heart can rebuild lives, even the ones that seem untouchable.